What's good, everyone? 2.92 with another video for the channel. Welcome back to the NB Sports Zone. And tonight, I got none other than Pedro Schmith, who, as you guys know, if you've been keeping tabs with the channel, has been on the channel previously. And I'm excited to have you back, Pedro, to talk about our Washington football team. And before we even get started with the questions, though, can you introduce yourself to the people who might not have watched our previous collab videos?
Yeah, I'm Pedro Schmith. I also have a Washington football team YouTube channel, and I'm excited to talk about the Washington football team today.
All right. And make sure you guys go check out Pedro's channel. I made sure to link in the description.
Appreciate it.
Great content creator on this platform. So make sure you guys go check it out if you haven't already. Dubs family, I see you joining. Hope you're doing well. Hawk as well, even before the stream started, joining in the chat. Appreciate the support. And with that being said, let's get started with mini camp, right? I was just wondering, what are your overall thoughts on mandatory mini camp thus far? Well, I mean, it pretty much wrapped up today, but for the Washington football team, and who have been your standout and not so standout players over the last 3 days, and even during OTAs as well?
So yeah, I think that's a good question. I'm thinking about making a video on that too, but I think so some early, but I would say obviously Benjamin St. Juste, he's been balling out. He's been getting some pass breakups. No interceptions yet. All right, well, no interceptions in minicamp, but I think he had 2 in OTAs. But he's been really good, which is nice. I think ideally you want for your cornerback trio, you want St. Juste on the outside, you want William Jackson on the outside, and Kendall Fuller in the inside. I was thinking that was going to be more of a 2022 thing, but if he's looking this good, I mean, maybe we can start off sometime this season with that trio. That would be really good. So he's been looking good. Derek Forrest looks good as well. Let's see. AGG had a good day today, which is good. Not only the one catch, but he had multiple good catches, which is good. Cam Sims has been playing pretty well. He's always done pretty well in the off season, and last year was like the really first season he actually put it together on the field, and he finished off the season strong, so he did pretty good. And that's pretty much it. Those guys, Antonio Gibson as well, they've been saying he's been looking really good and involved more in the passing game, which is good. I like to hear because he only had 247 receiving yards last year, and he was a receiver coming out of college. So I hope they involve him more in the pass game this year, especially with J.D. McKissick being a free agent after this year.
Okay. I mean, I definitely agree with your picks. Benjamin St. Juste has had an outstanding both OTA period and mandatory minicamp period. Although I think he did get burnt today by Dyami Brown. But I mean, I think that says more about Brown and the potential that, we've talked about a lot on this channel already in
I
previous
forgot to
streams.
say him too.
Yeah, Dyami Brown, man. I mean, I saved it for later in the stream, but if you want to talk about him right now, how high do you think the ceiling is for Dyami Brown? And do you think he could really line up alongside Terry on the outside come week 1?
Yeah, I think I'm really excited about him, and I kind of agree with Gunner. We don't need to get overhyped about this stuff. We don't need to get overhyped about this, but at the end of the day, it's all we see right now. It's all we can see. So I like it. I really like the player. I think he has a really good shot. Him, Curtis Samuel, and Terry. I mean, those 3 in a lineup would be really nice. And I think I'm not sure if he's going to start off the season as a starter right away. I think he'll be battling it out with Cam Sims, on the outside. And I think ultimately at some point this season, could be week 1 or could be later, he will end up being the starter. And yeah, he's got some good speed, and he's a deep threat. He's a deep threat, which we need. So I'm liking that he's building chemistry with Fitzpatrick, with Heineke, with everyone, which I'm excited about. And I think he's going to be a steal in the 3rd round.
Yeah, for sure. And once again, shout out to everybody in the chat, Charlie, Michael. I mean, I think we all believe this at this point. Washington's going to do well this year, even with a guy or guys that are competing right now for the quarterback spot. Dubs family, thank you for joining again. Gunner, ProTech, go check out ProTech Sports Network. Another great YouTube page on here covering Washington football team, but really NFL news, sports news in general. So make sure you guys go follow up on Tony's page. And yeah, Gunner as well. Like I said, Tone, thank you for joining as well, bro. Apke did move to cornerback. Do you make anything out of this move? I personally think it's just the last resort before he ultimately gets cut, but I don't know if you think there's more to it.
Yeah, I don't think there's much more to it. I mean, the only thing I would say at all is like, there's really no shot of him making it at safety just because of all the depth we have. So maybe they're thinking like, probably not, but there's a slight chance he could make the team at corner versus safety, because at safety, I mean, there is zero chance he makes it on this roster as a safety. When you think about it, you got Landon Collins, you got Cameron Curl, you got Bobby McCain, you got DeShazier Everett, you got Jeremy Reeves, you got Derek Forrest. He's not better than any of those. And then at corner, obviously he's not near, the top 4, top 5 guys, but if he has an amazing camp, there would be a small chance of him making it. So maybe that's probably why they're moving him over, and they don't really like him at safety. But yeah, I think he's going to be gone after preseason or after training camp. Whatever.
Okay. And this was someone who was going to mention as a not so standout for mandatory minicamp, but I want to talk a little bit more about him on the stream, and that is Sammis Reyes, the tight end that we ultimately signed in the offseason, the athletic specimen that is Sammis Reyes. And we've got pretty much mixed reports on Sammis Reyes and his performance thus far in camp. I mean, it feels like the tight end coach, one of the best in the league. One moment he says Sammis Reyes is all the talent that you want at the tight end position. The next moment he says he's, had a couple of drops during camp and stuff. So I was wondering, what do you make out of his performance thus far? And do you think he's actually, one, going to make the roster, and two, going to have a sizable role on this offense this year?
So Reyes, I kind of think like there's really not many people in the middle, and I feel like I'm one of the people in the middle. It's like there's so many people, like every time they see a clip of his, they go crazy. They love it. They're like, oh my God, this guy's the next Antonio Gates. And then there's people that are like trashing the dude for every single clip when like it's his first time playing football. Like it's his first time, and like they're, I'm not going to talk about it too much, but they keep, trashing him. And I'm in the middle. I think, I definitely think if you look at the clips from the, rookie minicamp to minicamp right now, he's gotten a lot better. And you should expect that because, again, his experience of football is 1 week of high school football. Besides that, he hasn't played. So with Reyes, I don't really think he's going to make the roster. I think he's more of a practice squad guy. If they really want to keep him, then he could be that, third, or you don't really keep 4, but maybe they would want to because they think some other teams are going to get him. But here's the thing, what I'll say. I think it's going to be very telling the first week of training camp because he has a very, very good work ethic. You can see that. I mean, he came here when he was 13 from Chile, grinded his way to becoming a D1 athlete, and then after that, grinded his way to a potential roster spot in the NFL, or he has a roster spot right now. So I think in that first week, he has 6 weeks from now till training camp, 6-7 weeks. Let's see what he does in that time with Pete Hainer, all that advice he gave him, Rivera gave him. Let's see what he does in those 7 weeks, and let's see, what he looks like week 1. And I think that, or not week 1 of training camp. And I think that will be very telling about how he's progressing. But ultimately, I don't necessarily think he's going to make the roster unless he really, really does improve in the next couple months.
Yeah. And I agree with you, Tony and Gunner. I mean, he is pretty much a project at this point. I think the ideal situation for the Washington football team at the tight end position would be for the Eagles to cut Zach Ertz and for us to sign Zach Ertz to be our tight end too, and then have Sammis Reyes potentially, take as much time as he needs to come to really get up to speed and ultimately be that tight end for us for the future. But I mean, do you have any thoughts on that? Do you think, one, the Eagles will actually release Zach Ertz? Because there's been a lot of talk about that over the course of the offseason. But do you think that will actually happen? And two, do you think Washington might be interested and might actually ultimately sign him?
I don't know if they'll release him. I mean, they kind of have been pretty like firm on like they want to get something for him. So
Yeah.
I think they'll ultimately keep him. I don't think they will release him. And Ertz, the thing with Ertz is I don't think he's gonna come here unless they're like you're gonna get the tight end one spot because I mean you got to go in his shoes. I mean, before this year, he was a top 3 tight end in the NFL for 2-3 years. Like he was one of the better tight ends in the NFL. So top what? Who would you put over him besides Kittle and
Uh,
Kelsey? Like
Waller,
yeah, but
Darren
before
Waller.
this year, like it was pretty much debatable. Like before this year, the last couple years, well,
Okay.
you could say top 4, top 5, no doubt top 5 tight end in the
Yeah.
NFL before this season. So wherever you put him on the list, he's top 5. And this year wasn't amazing when he was on the field and had that injury, but I still think he definitely feels like he's a tight end one. So I think he'll want to go to a situation where he's gonna get that role, and I don't think he's gonna. He might get that in Washington, but I think he'd rather go somewhere else where he's definitely going to be the best tight end.
And I think a lot of people out there need to realize too that, I mean, Carson Wentz was throwing him the ball this year, and I don't know if you guys who are watching the stream right now have checked out all the advanced analytics when it comes to quarterback performances this past year. We all know Dwayne Haskins was one of, if not the worst, but Carson Wentz wasn't that far behind. So when you have a guy like that throwing the football to Zach Ertz, I mean, obviously Zach Ertz has been injury prone over the course of his career, but I feel like quarterback play definitely had a big role in Ertz not having a great year last year. So I think he would be a great fit here. And ultimately, even if the Eagles do want to hold on to him and want to, or at least want to hold on to him unless they get draft compensation back or a player back, I think it won't be much. I think Washington should definitely pull the trigger and ultimately acquire Zach Ertz. But before that, of course, we have Samus Reyes, we have Logan Thomas. I mean, how comfortable do you feel about this tight end group as a whole? Do you think, whether it be Ertz or someone else, do you think Washington should add to the position, or do you think it's fine as is? I mean, what are your thoughts?
I personally think at this point it's fine as is, just because, like, you look at last year, we had Logan Thomas in his first year starting as a tight end and Jeremy Sprinkle as a backup. Logan Thomas, I think, is going to be a little bit better this year than he was last year because, again, this last year was his first year as a starting tight end and first year in the system with his coaching staff. So I think he'll be a little bit better, and I definitely think whoever the tight end 2 is, who I think will be John Bates, but if that's John Bates, if it's Ricky Seals-Jones, will be miles ahead of Jeremy Sprinkle and Marcus Boss. So I think at this point there really isn't much we can do to get really upgrade this a lot. We could go after Ertz, but I don't think they're gonna really trade him in division. You know what I mean? Unless we really, really give him a good offer. So I am fine with where we're at right now, especially like you get Ertz and it's kind of like Bates is just really not going to have a role in this offense at all. And I think you want to develop him a little bit because Ertz is a good blocker. So Bates would really get no playing time in his first year. He would get some, but not as much as you would want. So, and you also have Ricky Seals-Jones, who he's not great, but he's had a few
Journeyman.
300, 400-yard seasons, and as a tight end 2, tight end 3, that's pretty good. So I think not a great group, but I think at this point we're fine.
Okay. Yeah, John Bates, I mean, as you probably already know, Corey from On the Warpath is super high on him. And I mean, he does have the potential. I just worry, though, 4th-round pick, tight end is notorious as a position in terms of rookie tight end starting off slow. That's one of the reasons why I think Kyle Pitts is not going to have as insane of a year as many people out there think he's going to have, just because of history and what it has told us pretty much at the position. But should be interesting. Hopefully Bates hopefully Bates mans that tight end 2 spot. Pete Herner does his magic, works his magic, and ultimately gets him up to speed. But we shall see there. I do want to ask, though, Tone asked earlier, actually, in the chat about both Troy Apke and then Steven Sims as well. And that leads me to my next question, and that is, what are your thoughts on the wide receiver group as a whole? I know we talked about De'Ami Brown. Of course, we have Terry McLaurin manning the wide receiver 1 spot. But what are your thoughts on the group as a whole, and who do you think will actually make the 53-man roster when it's all said and done?
I love the wide receiving core. I mean, you can compare it to last year in the middle of the season. Dontrell Inman last year, Jeff Badette, Robert Foster, and you replace those guys with De'Ami Brown, Adam Humphries, and Curtis Samuel. I mean, that's a massive overhaul. So I really, really like our wide receiving core. I think as long as they stay healthy. But I think Terry, Curtis, De'Ami are all locks. And then I think Adam Humphries is pretty close to a lock. I'm not going to say he's a lock, but as long as he stays healthy entering in, the start of the season, I think he'll make it just because he has some good chemistry with Ryan Fitzpatrick. He's been in the league for a while. They don't have a, veteran receiver. Terry's their oldest receiver besides Adam Humphries, because I think Curtis is 24 and Terry's 25, I think. So Adam Humphries brings, a veteran presence, which I think will help. And then I think Cam Sims will be the 5th. I think he's not a lock, but he played for them last year, played really well. And I think Rivera really likes, those type of players. I mean, he didn't start off on the roster last year. He started off on the practice squad. He grinded his way up by playing special teams. By, week 4, week 5, he was on the roster. I think Rivera really, really values that. And also they're committed to him, like at least salary for this year. It's like $2+ million. So compared to like AGG, Kelvin Harmon, those guys, and Milne, and you guys can go down the list, they're more committed to him this year than the others. So I think he'll make it. And I mean, you can't lie, he had a solid season last year. I mean, 477 yards and with terrible quarterback play. And he didn't start playing until week 5, I think, week 4, week 5. So I mean, if he would have played the whole season, maybe he gets like 600 yards. So I think that's those 5. I think ultimately, if they're healthy by the start of the season, they'll be on the roster. After that, it's tough because AGG, Kelvin Harmon, like last year, they would have been, if both of them were healthy, or I mean, whatever. With last year's wide receiving core, they would have been locks to make the roster. This year, not so much. I just think it's going to be really, really hard for AGG not to make this roster just because 4th round pick last year from this regime. And to be fair, he did not have really a season at all. No OTAs, no mini camp, no rookie mini camp. No training camp because he got a concussion. I think the 2nd or 3rd day, was out for that. Played the first 3 weeks of the season, didn't do much, had like 1 catch and 1 run. Got hurt in week 3, was out until like week 16, and played that game, did not play well. So he played in 4 games this year. He was healthy for 4 games, did not have any offseason. So like unless he looks terrible, I think he's gonna make it. I don't think they're ready to punt on him, especially considering going, comparing to Harmon, who I like. I like Harmon, but 6th round pick from 2019, previous regime, not this regime. It's a previous regime, and like you want to have control over your players, and they'll have AGG for 3 years versus Kelvin Harmon 2 years. So I think all of that plays into it. I probably rather keep Harmon, but I think they'll definitely. Well, I'm kind of split on that. But I think AGG will make the roster, and then that's 6, right? That's 6. Yeah. So it's tough, right? It's tough. And then Harmon, who knows? Like that's like it's hard to have him off, but like I just don't know. And then Milne, I think if they keep 7, I think he will be the 7th to because they drafted him this year and he's looked pretty good, and also because I think he can fill that punt returner position, which Steven Sims, DeAndre Carter, they have no chance of making the roster, and I think the other guy is Danny Johnson. So if they do need a punt returner, then I think he will make the team, Dax Milne, because again, they're more committed to him than they are Isaiah Wright and Steven Sims.
Okay. Roger Smith, thank you for joining.
What's up, Roger?
The wide receiver group, it's tough. I definitely agree with your top 5: Terry, Curtis, Yami, Adam, and Cam Sims. Also, another point with Cam Sims and why I think it's pretty much a guarantee at this point that he's going to make the roster. From the history of this team, coaches always want to keep, and really across the league, coaches always want to keep that big-bodied receiver.
Yeah.
And when you take that into account, I mean, he's really the only big-bodied receiver that actually has a chance on this roster. I mean, Kelvin Harmon is a little taller, but I mean, not by much. So I think Cam Sims is going to be that guy for them, and he'll ultimately make it. But after that, like you said, it's pretty much a crapshoot. Kelvin Harmon, Dax Milne, AGG. I'm not really even on the fence when it comes to the whole Kelvin Harmon versus AGG, like who I want to actually make the roster. I think I personally want Kelvin Harmon to make the roster because he showed me much more in 2019, catching passes from we're talking about terrible quarterback play from arguably our worst quarterback in the last 15 years, and Dwayne Haskins throwing him the ball. Obviously, during the last couple games of that season, he was actually pretty solid. I'll give you that. But I mean, Kelvin Harmon had a couple nice catches, even with balls not thrown to him perfectly. And he showed me much more 2 years ago than AGG showed last year. Although you have to consider the COVID shortened offseason for a rookie receiver coming in out of Liberty, right? It's the NFL, completely different leagues. I get that. But ultimately, I agree with you, though. I think the team, because of the fact that they invested a 4th-round pick in AGG, they're going to actually keep him, even though I don't necessarily agree with that. So I think they're going to keep him. Dax Milne, I think, is going to go to the practice squad unless he keeps tearing it up during training camp. And I mean, the whole NFL, here's the buzz here in Washington about the next great receiver that we have. If that's the case, obviously, you're going to have to probably fit him in onto the roster, maybe move AGG to the practice squad. But yeah, I like what I saw out of Dax Milne. As you know, been a huge Zach Wilson fan for a very long time, since late September. Have been telling people they should be the number 2 overall pick. And after watching a lot of his highlights, watching a lot of his games overall, Dax Milne was his primary receiver. And he always popped out, always caught a lot of balls, rarely dropped passes. And I think he would be a great fit on this roster, although it's going to be tough, like you said. Very talented receivers that we have, completely different than what we've had the last 2-3 years. I mean, there was a point when Josh Doxson was our wide receiver 1 going to the season. So that tells you all you need to know about the state of the wide receiving core here in DC for a long time. But should be interesting to see how things pan out. Pan out. Y'all be sleeping on Cam Sims. No, I think we both are saying that he's going to make the roster. I mean, I had a problem with him dropping a lot of passes after that Steelers game. Everybody remembers him for that great catch at the end of the game that ultimately won us the game, right, against the undefeated Steelers at the time. But everybody forgets what happened after that game. He started dropping a lot of passes, wasn't very consistent. So hopefully he gets back to being more consistent, has a couple games where he pops out like he did last year. But I don't think we're sleeping on him. I think we're both saying that he's going to make the roster. But I mean,
one quick thing about Harmon, and it's like, so it's not really like been reported, but I think Kime talked about it, and he was like, there's like some intrigue there with moving Harmon to tight end, where like kind of like a Niles Paul role, because he is a very, very good blocker. So if he put on 10, 15 pounds or something, it definitely would be a possibility, and it would make it more likely for him to make the roster. But I think at this point, it's not happening.
And also the problem with that, though, is that I think Niles Paul, if I remember correctly, he had, I guess, better speed than what Kelvin Harmon has. Like Kelvin Harmon going into the draft making it onto this roster. Like, he was notorious for running pretty slow in the 40-yard dash. Doesn't have like the greatest of playing speed. So adding more pounds on that frame, I know he would move to tight end if he were to do that, but like I don't know if that's going to affect his overall ability as a pass catcher in this league. Like, just separating period from defenders, even as a tight end. I don't know if you have thoughts on that.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, he would really, like, personally for him, it's like tough for him. Like, if he wants to be like get paid eventually, like he's not gonna do it right now by being the third tight end on this team where he's really not played it. But I think if he wants to make, yeah, it's really tough. It's really tough.
Yeah. But I mean, I think we agree that Steven Sims is as good as gone at this point.
Yeah, I mean, it's really disappointing because he is so talented, and like I feel like it's disappointing because he, besides Haskins, of course, like he was the most disappointing player on the team, and like Haskins, like I didn't really have like big expectations from. Like I was hoping he would do good, but like also I was pretty nervous. Like the first game of the season, like every time he dropped back, I was like, please, please don't turn the ball over. You know what I mean? But with Sims, like I had expectations. I thought he would have a really, really good year. This past season, he finished that year off in 2019 super strong with Dwayne, super good route runner, and I mean, the first couple games this season, he had like I think 50 or 60 yards both games. Like he had a good first couple games, and it was only on like 5 targets each, right? 5 targets both games, and then he got hurt. He had that toe injury, that turf toe, or yeah, he had something where he missed like a bunch of games and really wasn't probably the same. But I don't think he's gonna make the roster just because Curtis, obviously, there's no shot of Steven Sims being better than him. Adam Humphries, kind of the same thing. Like Adam Humphries been in the league for a while, good chemistry with probably our starting quarterback. So I don't think that Sims has a chance. And also his punt returning, like if he could add, like if he was a good punt returner, then there would be a shot at making the roster. But he can't catch a damn ball, so he's not making it.
Yeah. I will say this though, once he actually got semi-decent quarterback play towards the end of the season with Taylor Heineke getting the starts, I mean, he looked better. We saw a little bit.
He was still like dropping, like consistently dropping passes, and it was like at times it was like big moments in the game. Like I think in the 49ers game, like Dwayne just came in, like, and Dwayne, I think it was his first drive. He was like having a pretty good drive, and I think he had like they had like a 30 or 40 yard drive, and then Haskins throws a pretty solid ball to Sims, and it just goes right through his hands, and it goes to fourth down, and like that happened multiple times with Alex Schmith too in that Lions game as well. So yeah, I think ultimately he doesn't make this roster.
Yeah. And I mean, I agree with Gunner. I don't know, especially here in DC. The Sims here in DC, drop issues have been a problem. Even for Cam Sims, I mean, it's been a problem for a couple years now. So hopefully he at least gets it shored up and we can move on with our wide receiving group. But you talked about the toe injury that Steven Sims suffered, I believe, last season. But I want to talk about Antonio Gibson with a turf toe injury that apparently is still lingering, apparently not lingering. I mean, it depends on who you listen to at this point. How comfortable are you with him starting come week 1 and really the running back group as a whole this season? And we will, a little bit later in this stream, we'll get to stat lines. But since we did offense with Corey last week, we're going to do defense this week. So we won't get into like offense stat lines or anything really. But with Antonio Gibson, how big of a season do you think he's going to have this year?
Well, so I'll first answer the injury question, right? So
yeah,
like with Gibson, like I was a little concerned, like just because like when you're on Twitter, you're scrolling through, you see stuff like kind of fake news, like with everything.
Yeah.
Like there's fake news on everything, and like the fantasy community, there's always those like doctors who think like they like just because they're like a hand doctor that they're qualified to like, talk about someone's toe or whatever. And there's guys like, oh, like there's a possibility he's out for the season, or like it's not looking good. And then my thoughts are, I really trust Rivera in terms of like, if there's a guy injured, he's going to take him out. And like he did a pretty good job with that with a lot of players last year with Chase. I mean, it was a super minor hip injury, which did actually ultimately hurt him, but it was way later in the season. But it was a super minor hip flexor, and he held him out for like a week plus of training camp and really didn't let him do any like heavy contact drills the rest of training camp that season. And then he was pretty much fine, and then he re-aggravated it like a month and a half later. So I think Gibson, he's been like, he hasn't even been limited. He's been doing everything like fully this so far in minicamp and OTAs. So like it still might be lingering a little bit, but I think it is a good sign that he's really not limited at all. And I mean, he's getting 7 weeks off. So if it is still an issue, like 7 weeks, or, if it's still an issue right now, 7 weeks, 8 weeks, it'll be fine, in my opinion. And I really don't think it should be a big issue. And in terms of like his season next year, I'm really excited for Gibson, because I think, he was a great running the ball last year, especially in the second half of the year. So I think, building off of that, 1,200 plus yards rushing, 1,100 plus yards rushing, in my opinion. But I'm excited to see what he can do in the pass game, because I ultimately think we will not bring J.D. McKissic back after the season, and it will be because Gibson can take on more of a role in the pass catching game. And I think, McKissic will get a solid payday, and like, he might get whatever, 6 plus, around that range, 6-7 mil. And we don't really necessarily need that when we have Gibson who can do it, and we can probably get someone else in there for pretty cheap. So I think I'm really hoping he develops more in the passing game. And I don't necessarily think that's too much on him. I think that's more on the offense, Scott Turner, to involve him a little bit more in the pass catching game. And I think they will, because there's been like reports that they've been, involving him a lot more so far in the pass game.
Yeah. I think I agree with James Panda here. I think he could have close to 1,000 rushing yards, like just straight up on the ground this season. Maybe have 400, 450 receiving yards. I think that's very realistic for Antonio Gibson. I think eventually, maybe not this year, but down the line, he's going to make a Pro Bowl. I really believe in Antonio Gibson. I mean, I said about a month and a half after he was drafted, I think he's an Alvin Kamara type of running back. Like, that's how high I was on him. I'm still that high on him. I am a little bit worried about the lingering turf toe injury, because turf toes are terrible, as you guys know if you've had it, and also if you know from previous players having it for this franchise and really across the league. So hopefully he recovers, and I think he will be ready come week 1. Yep. But I think J.D. McKissic is a very, very solid running back, arguably one of the most underrated players on this roster. I mean, he had over 500 receiving yards last year. I believe he was our second leading receiver at the running back position, albeit Alex Schmith, check down Alex, definitely threw him the ball a little bit too much, if we're going to be honest. But I think he's very solid. But I do agree with you. Maybe his payday is definitely coming. So I think Antonio Gibson, if you just keep getting him up to speed, add him some more touches out of the backfield as a runner, but also actually take advantage of his receiving ability that we haven't really seen too much of thus far, I think we won't really need McKissic down the line. But another guy that I'm kind of high on, Jared Patterson. I think he could have a pretty good role with us this year. Showed a lot of good things during camp and a lot of good things over his collegiate career as well. But I do worry about his size, because of the fact that he's known as more of a power runner, less of a speed runner. So if you're short in stature, but if you're considered a power runner in college, coming into the league with all these big-bodied guys on the defense, a little worried about that. But I think he could be a very solid player for us. And the one guy that I'm not high on whatsoever, and I think, Pedro, you know who I'm going with here, is is Peyton Barber, Mr. 1-2 yarder. I get it. He'll get you the 1 or 2 yards that you need. If it's 3rd and 2, he'll get you those 2 yards, and that's super important, right? Especially with us not having a great 3rd down offense over the last couple of years, but nothing more. And I think, again, I'm still a little salty that Adrian Peterson, I get it, though. He wouldn't really be comfortable in that role when you have an Antonio Gibson, who he knows is the upcoming star for our team. I get it. He wouldn't be comfortable, but an Adrian Peterson type of running back, I think, is what I'm trying to say at the to really take over for Peyton Barber. And I think maybe getting a guy like Le'Veon Bell, who's on the market right now, or some other running backs maybe on the market, just someone who's not Peyton Barber would be great. But I mean, do you think Peyton Barber, having slimmed down a bit, do you think he'll be a little bit better this year?
I mean, the thing with Barber is like his skill set is short yardage, and I feel like Gibson can definitely do that. I mean, he was such a good goal line back. So I really wasn't like Barber did come up clutch last year, a few times. Like in that Cowboys game, had a bunch of good runs. That Eagles game, yeah, he had some good clutch, 1 or 2 yard runs. But I feel like they used him a little bit too much at times. Like Barber should be like, I'm totally fine if Barber's getting 4 carries, 3 carries a game, but there was games where he was getting like 8, 9 plus carries a game, and he was like the starter. Like the first snap with the offense, Barber was the running back, and I didn't like that. I don't think it'll happen this year if he's on the roster, but I think Gibson can do a lot of the short yardage stuff that Barber can do, and I'd rather keep. I mean, it's going to be interesting if they keep 3 or 4 running backs. I think if they think Gibson's injury is somewhat concerning, they'll keep 4. If not, I think it'll be 3. They kept 4 to start off the year last year, but once Bryce Love got put on IR or whatever, like week 3, they kept 3 for the rest of the season. So I think if they keep 7 receivers, then it'll be 3 running backs. But if they keep 6, maybe it'll be 4 running backs. But Barber, it's tough to see. Yeah, the running back position is another one where it's like, McKissick, Gibson, and then after that, it's like Patterson definitely has a shot to make this roster. Lamar Miller as well. I mean, like, if he's the Lamar Miller from the last season half, he's not going to make this roster. But if he's healthy and he's close to what he was in 2018, 2017, I mean, that's kind of like the Adrian Peterson type back. Like at this point in his career, he can get you 4 or 5 yards if you need him to. So those last 3 running backs competing for 1 or 2 spots is going to be very interesting.
Okay. I mean, Lamar Miller, though, even at the height of his career, though, he was known more as like a speed guy than anything else. I think he ran a super fast 40-yard dash coming into the league and was just really fast throughout his career. So I don't know. It's been almost a year now that I've been telling folks that I'm not high on Peyton Barber, and we shall see, though. He did slim down. Maybe I'll get him a couple more yards than he had last year. We'll see. Patterson, I do agree, needs to show more as a pass blocker really to make this roster. You can't just be one-dimensional, especially in today's game. Gibson, I mean, I agree with Pedro. He is a very solid short yardage back. The one thing with Gibson, though, that I think he got better, though, towards the end of the season, but still does need to make strides in, is his vision. I think we saw that especially in the beginning of the season where he just couldn't find the right holes, and ultimately, instead of breaking out for a 15-yard gain, he only got maybe 4 or 5 yards on that play, and I think that was very frustrating early in the season and a couple times towards the end of the season. But I think with another year under his belt, I think he will be better in that aspect and will also be better as a pass catcher in the league. So I'm excited to see what Gibson has. But I'm with you. Really, it's Gibson, McKissick, and we shall see after that. Although I think Peyton Barber has the inside track of being that running back 3 for us, unfortunately. And the next question that I want to ask, moving off from the running back group, the wide receiver group, tight end group, Of course, it's the quarterback room right now. I mean, it looked like going into camp, Ryan Fitzpatrick, clear cut, quarterback one, week one. I mean, it still kind of looks like he's the leading contender right now, but from what I've heard, Taylor Heineke has had a better camp. And I was wondering, what are your thoughts on the quarterback room right now? And also, since we're sort of in the final exams part of the calendar year for like school and stuff, I mean, I would give the group right now a C minus, but I don't know if you have like a higher grade or lower grade for them right now. General thoughts on the group. Also, do you think there's still an outside chance that Washington could get one of the big fish at quarterback right now, potentially, and an Aaron Rodgers and maybe a Deshaun Watson? If not this offseason, then maybe next offseason.
So, I mean, the thing with Fitzpatrick is like what I heard from a bunch of different like reporters is like I don't know how many I think he threw 2 interceptions today. I think Heineke threw 1 today. I don't know about Kyle Allen, but I heard, and I don't know if it contributed to the interceptions, but I heard that Fitzpatrick is kind of throwing like where he thinks the receiver should be instead of necessarily like where he is, just to get like a rhythm going and get that chemistry building. So I think part of it is like they're still gelling, like Fitzpatrick, new offense with a whole new team, and he's trying to set expectations for them. That's what a lot of veteran quarterbacks do. They don't necessarily throw like in training camp and practice. They don't necessarily throw right at the guy, but they throw where they think he's going to be or where he should be. But yeah, I mean, the interceptions are going to happen, especially with Fitzpatrick, and all the time in training camp. This is what happened, or whatever camp it happens. And I think it's going to be Fitzpatrick. I don't think much is going to change unless, in preseason, like the only thing I really think can change it is preseason. Like if Heineke is clearly better than Fitzpatrick, then I think he has a chance to be the starter over him. But at the end of the day, I think it's going to be Fitzpatrick, and I am much higher on Fitzpatrick than others. I'm not out here saying he's a top 10, top 15 quarterback, but I definitely think he's a serviceable quarterback. I mean, I think 5th in QBR last season, 8th in the last 2 years, number 1 quarterback under pressure last year in the NFL. Like out of anyone, he's number 1. Doesn't get sacked much. His sack rate is like, I think top 30, top 40 of all time. So like I think with us, and I think this offense that he has this year is better than what he had last year. Didn't have a great offensive line. Didn't have great running back, had a solid tight end, but didn't have a great receiving core. I think pretty much every position group this season for him is pretty much upgraded or like the same as his in Miami. So yeah.
No, sorry to cut you off, but do you agree that this is probably the best team that he's ever been on over his entire career?
Yeah, I think so, especially, considering a solid offense and a really good defense, which he hasn't had in a long time. Because the Dolphins defense is good, but they're not on our level, in my opinion. So, yeah, I think this is probably his best team. And it's going to come down to him. Like, if he can play solid, I don't need him to play good. I needed him to play solid. Just play in that, 15 to 20 range of quarterbacks, and we win 10 plus games, in my opinion, because we won 7 last year with the worst quarterback play in the NFL by far. Like it wasn't close. We were 32nd in QBR by a huge margin. So I think whatever we get this year, like I'm pretty much saying whatever we get this year is going to be better than we got last year. Like if it's Patrick struggling the first few games this season, it'll be Heineke or maybe even Allen later down the line, and I think it'll still be much better than we had last year, because I think Allen played solid last year in those couple games, definitely much better than Haskins. If he has to play, that'll be okay. And I think Heineke, of course, I'm happy. I'm excited to see what he does in the preseason, and ultimately if he gets a chance, in the season. I don't really love our quarterback group, but I don't know about what grade I would give it. I'm not, too upset with it because I think we can still get solid quarterback play. there isn't, much a huge upside in Fitzpatrick, but I still think he can be good enough to lead us to the playoffs, which I think is the goal for this year. And maybe and Heineke, like I just still think it's like I love what I saw in the Panthers game and in the Bucks game, and I think I
Limited sample size.
want to see him play, but you just can't, like, there's so many people saying he's like the franchise quarterback, and you can't say that. Like, I'm sorry, it's 1.5 games. Like, even like after whoever, like I don't know, whatever great quarterback that's been drafted in the last 10 years, after their first 6 games, you can't say this guy's a franchise quarterback. Like, you got to see a full season, and we've seen 1.5 games from Heineke. I'm excited to see what he can do. If he plays 3 great preseason games or 2 good preseason games, that'll, and he gets some time in this regular season, then we can talk about it a little bit more. But I still think it's a little bit too early on that. But you can still be excited about him, but at the same time, know that still you really don't know what he is, because what you do know actually is that in the 5 games he's played, each one he's gotten injured in, but he did gain 15 pounds of muscle this offseason, which should help a lot. It should help.
I mean, maybe this much. I'm not gonna fall into the whole like. I mean, I get it. Completely different quarterback. But I'm not gonna fall into the whole. My quarterback works out in the off season, gets some muscle, loses some weight or some body fat, and then ultimately produces better than he did last year. I'm not. He might improve a little bit, with a little bit more arm strength, but I don't think it's gonna be much an improvement. If we're gonna be honest. But with your thing about Fitzpatrick, if he's a top 15, top 20, even top 20 quarterback, we should probably win 10 plus games. See, if Fitzpatrick had that type of performance with this roster and was playing last year's schedule, then I would agree with you. But this year's schedule, much tougher, gonna have a lot more first place teams in other divisions, gonna be playing the AFC West if I'm not mistaken. The Bills we're gonna play against the Bills in that additional game. So one of the best teams in the AFC, one of the best teams across the league. So I don't know. I'm still going to stick with my 8 to 9 wins for this Washington football team this year. But with the quarterback group, I mean, I'm not super high on Fitzpatrick. I'm not super down on Fitzpatrick. I'm sort of in between. I think you basically listed off all the stats from last year and really the last couple of years, showing how Fitzpatrick has actually been a better quarterback than maybe even a lot of us fans believe that he has been, and pretty much has sort of aged like fine wine, right? Like, last couple of years have been his best years of his career. So if he just continues that trajectory, maybe we might have something this year. But Heineke, I liked what I saw out of Heineke last year. I was one of the few people calling into 106.7 The Fan. I think it was before the Panthers game, if I'm not mistaken. But I was one of the few people who actually called in to say that Heineke should start over Alex Smith. Everybody wanted Alex Smith to play because they thought he had the better leadership and had the years of experience over Heineke. But I liked what I saw. Okay, so this was after the Panthers game. I liked what I saw out of Heineke during that Panthers game, and I thought he definitely deserved a chance and definitely showed more than Alex Smith did throughout really the entire season, minus maybe I think it was the Lions game, if I'm not mistaken, where Alex Smith had over 300 yards. But yeah, so I was high on Heineke then. It's kind of funny how the tables have turned now, though, that because fans are all super high on him, or a lot of fans out there think, like you said, could be that franchise quarterback for us. And I'm not on that side. I think we still need to see a lot more out of him to really reach that conclusion. But like I said, the quarterback group right now, C minus. I kind of liked what I saw of Kyle Allen last year, but always gets injured, kind of like Taylor Heineke. So kind of a problem there. But
one quick thing about the schedule that I'll say is I think, obviously, like last year, I think we had an easy schedule, but I think that's mostly because of the NFC East. Like, we played NFC West, probably the best division in football. Yes, they were hurt a little bit, but still had to play Kyler Murray, still had to play Russell Wilson. And obviously, And the Rams too. Like they were healthy. They were
Jared
fully
Goff.
healthy, but still they were fully healthy when we played them. They were an 11-win team last year. We played three playoff team or yeah, two playoff teams and two other teams that won 9 and 8 games or 9 and 7 games, and then the NFC or AFC North. We played three teams in that division that are 11+ win teams, and then the Bengals. So like I don't think our schedule is that easy last year, and we played the best two divisions in football, and we're still playing the NFC East this year. Yes, it's definitely
They're going to
improved.
be improved.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
definitely improved, but I think the Eagles are going to be like the same as last year. Like they're not going to be much better, in my opinion, unless Hurts really is the guy. So I think that's 1-2 wins right there. I think we'll finally win a game against the Giants, and then the Cowboys. If we can split them, that's 4 wins right there. And then we play the what is it, AFC West, where not
Mm-hmm.
obviously not a easy division, but besides the Chiefs, you got the Raiders, Broncos, and Chargers. Like I think they can win 2 out of those 3. Raiders every year,
Yeah.
they're 7-8 wins. Like they really haven't been that great. Broncos, I think we can beat them, and I think we win one of the two against Broncos and Chargers. One of those two. I think that's
Okay.
realistic. One of those two, and I think honestly, like the first place schedule, I also think is like overrated. That people are talking about like the first place schedule, because I think that the Bills game, that one is unfortunate. That one is definitely unfortunate that we have to play them. But still, I mean, the second place team, like the Giants, are still gonna have to play the Dolphins, and that's a tough game for them. But then you go, opposite side, we play the NFC West. We're playing the Seahawks. I'd rather play the Seahawks than the 49ers this year and the Rams with Matthew Stafford. I definitely rather play them than the Rams. And
Yeah.
the 49ers, I think that's also I think that as well. And then also the Packers. Like if Aaron Rodgers isn't playing for them, that's another game we get that we got because of the first place schedule. So I don't know what it is. I mean, he's probably going to be their quarterback, but at the end of the day, I think we still probably won't. I think our schedule is on par with last year, a little bit harder just because I think the NFC East, like you said, is going to be much better. I think Dallas is going to be improved. I think New York is going to be improved as well. So I still think, though, we can win 9-10 games.
Okay. I see Roger Smith's comment here about Heineke. We're not saying he doesn't have those abilities. It's just two things with
Small sample
Heineke.
size.
Yeah, exactly. Small sample size, but another thing that a lot of people forget, over the course of his short NFL career, he's always injured. Like he'll have one good game and then we'll go down with an injury. And I know, Pedro, you mentioned earlier that he did gain some muscle over the offseason, but even then, I mean, there's only so much muscle you can gain, especially when you have such a short stature like that. So I don't know. But I do. Let me take this comment off. A good 53 minutes into the stream, I do want to get into the guy that was on the thumbnail of the video, and the guy that has been, I don't know what you want to call it, but his comments in the last couple of days have gotten a lot of traction on social media, not just in the DC area, but really across the league. And that is Montez Sweat and his. I'll read it to you guys if you guys didn't hear it yesterday, but his comments, word for word, in reference to the COVID-19 vaccine. After Coach Rivera brought in a couple of vaccine experts to really push for the team to get vaccinated, or at least educate all the players who haven't been vaccinated already to get it. And he said, quote, "I'm not a fan of it," in reference to the vaccine, "at all. I won't get vaccinated until I get more facts. I haven't caught COVID yet, so I don't see me treating COVID until I actually get COVID." Word for word, his comments. Pedro, what do you make out of those comments? Do you think he has a point? And how do you, I mean, even Coach Rivera, a lot of coaches across the league are talking about this, how there's a competitive advantage as well to getting a team that's more vaccinated. Yeah, so I mean, you can touch on Montez Sweat's comments, really
Yeah.
even the comments of Sam Darnold as well, who was sort of in the same boat as Sweat. What are your thoughts?
So ultimately, I think that
Oh
at
no,
the end of the day, it's real. It's his body, so it's his body, and he's a professional athlete. He's probably scared of putting things in his body that he doesn't know about. So that, I guess, I don't necessarily agree with it, with like him not getting it, but at the end of the day, it's his choice. Like, he's taking the risk. Like, that's his choice. But his reasoning behind it, in my opinion, was very questionable. Like, he said that he doesn't want to get the vaccine, or he hasn't caught the virus, so he's not going to get treated for it until he gets it. Which, like, that's kind of saying, like, I'm not going to put my seatbelt on until after I crash through the windshield and get in an accident. Like, that's the thing that concerns me, especially after they had a vaccine expert in there like that day. So, like, he just must not have been paying attention. Like, he's probably just on his phone because, like, I don't know, or he wasn't there, because that's weird to me. Like, I don't know how you go through like an hour, 2 hour lecture and still have that in your mind. I also think like I like, unless there's something really, really, like, you really don't want to get it because of some issue, personal reason or something, like, it's a advantage for the team to get the players vaccinated. Not only
yep.
because, you know, if you, let's say you're vaccinated and you come into contact with someone with COVID, I believe there's no contact tracing. You're allowed to play. But if not, if Montez Sweat, his barber or whatever, has COVID, and he gets the cut, and the barber tests positive, well, Sweat's going to be out for the game even if he doesn't get COVID. So and if he has the vaccine, that's different. Also, with the higher threshold the team gets, percentage they get, like, the more things they can do. I think at like 80 something percent, like, most of the things are relaxed. So I don't really agree with Sweat, especially his reasoning on it. Like, that really is what puzzled me. But at the end of the day, I guess it's his choice, I guess.
Um, I'm sorry, Yuria. Appreciate your support, joining the stream and stuff. I don't agree with this take. The idea that it's his body, his choice. Of course, it's America. He has the freedom to do whatever he pleases within,
Yeah.
restrictions of the law and stuff, right? Within whatever is bounded by the law. I get that. I really do. But that position that it's his body, his choice, and he can do whatever he wants because, I mean, it is his body. See, the problem is, though, with COVID, you're not only affecting
Yeah.
yourself by not getting the vaccine, you're affecting other people who haven't gotten the vaccine, right? Like, so it's not like it's just you who's getting affected. Like, let's say it's a car accident, right? And it's a late night, there's nobody on the road. You crash into, I don't know, you crash into an empty building, there's nobody in the building, right? Like, of course you're by yourself, obviously, in the car, then the problem is on you, right? Like, if you don't wear a seatbelt. But the thing is, though, if you have other passengers in the car, right? Like, and you're telling them to, like, not wear like a seatbelt or anything, right? Or, for example, like in the case of a virus, right? If you don't get the vaccine, again, you're affecting other people by not getting the vaccine. So I just don't agree with the take that, like, him saying that he's not getting the vaccine. I mean, it's his choice because it's just his body. I mean, you're affecting other people as well. So again, I want to make it clear. It's his choice. Of course, it's a free country. It is America. You can make the choice to get the vaccine. I'm just on the fence that everybody who has the ability to get the vaccine, who, doesn't have a medical condition that bars them from really receiving the benefits of the vaccine, should get the vaccine. That's just where I've been for really over the course of 6-7 months now. And I just think his comments, like you said, haven't caught COVID yet, so I don't see me treating COVID until I actually get COVID. Just completely dumb, in my opinion.
one quick thing. So I definitely would have agreed with that if it was like about like just like a month and a half ago when it was like tough to get a vaccine. I would have definitely agreed with that. But now that everyone can get a vaccine, like literally in the US, everyone can get a vaccine. It's been that way for a while, for the last few weeks. So like he like if you were saying like he can still affect other unvaccinated people. Well, that you're like they should be getting, like you said,
But
those people should be getting the vaccine. Like, yeah,
Pedro, so this is sort of what Uriel I think was also getting at here. The thing is though, again, something that I mentioned in my comments, there are people who have medical conditions who simply cannot get the vaccine because they'll suffer an allergic reaction, or let's say someone has like cancer, right? Let's say this 2020, what happened in 2020 with Ron Rivera happened in 2021. He had cancer this year and decided to keep on coaching, right? Obviously, there's a risk there, but decided to keep on coaching, couldn't get vaccinated because of the fact that he had an immunosuppressed system. Like, you're not just affecting people who willingly choose, you know what, I'm not getting the vaccine because I don't want to, right? You're also affecting people who can't get the vaccine because they're going to have an allergic reaction. They have a underlying medical condition that prohibits them from getting it, right? Or else they can get seriously injured or possibly even die. So I just don't, again, I don't agree with this take, right? Like, I mean, I get it at this point. Like you said, the vaccine has been out for several months now. Most people who haven't gotten the vaccine already probably just don't want to get that vaccine. And at this point, it's kind of a problem on their end. But there are people who just simply cannot get the vaccine, and I don't think you can just throw them under the bus
yeah,
by saying, Montez Sweat is smart for saying that he won't get the vaccine, or his position is the position that should be promoted across the league.
yeah, I agree.
So having said that, I do want to get into, for the last 13, 14 minutes of the stream, a couple more questions. I want to briefly get into some defensive stat questions. So we're not going to go over every single player, and I'm not going to ask you for, stats for every single one of the players on the defense, but I do have some questions here that I do want to ask. And the first question I want to ask, and I think we actually talked about this on a previous stream, but I'll ask you again, just a little bit more updated now with the OTAs out of the way and mandatory minicamp out of the way. Who has more sacks this year, Chase Young or Montez Sweat? And how many sacks do you think each will have this year?
Chase Young, definitely. I think Chase Young. How many I think I'll go Sweat first. I think he'll get 10. I think Sweat will get 10. I don't think he'll get a big jump, but 9.5, 10 sacks I think he'll have. And then Chase, I'm gonna say with Chase, I think it's gonna be 14 and a half. I think, yes.
Oof.
You guys can, I honestly, I think I said this to you like the
Mm-hmm.
last stream or even the stream before that I think Chase is going to absolutely go ham this year. Multiple reasons. First, he was not healthy until, when was the Bengals game? Was it week 10?
I think it was a little before that. I'm not sure. But yeah,
Yeah,
around then.
it was, let's say week 10. He was not healthy until then. I think the first like game or two he was pretty healthy, but got hurt in the Bengals game, or not the Bengals, got hurt in the Browns game in the first possession, missed the Ravens game. So he missed 2 games there. That already, gets diminishes his sack total a little bit. And then like he even said, like, I think it was the week leading up to the Bengals game, like, this is the first week I really feel healthy since the groin injury. That week had a huge game, had like forced that fumble against Burrow, and ever since after that, he was going off. He had that good game against the Cowboys. He had a big game against the Panthers and a couple other games. Yeah, he had a really good second half of the season, especially after the Bengals game. And I think, obviously the biggest jump in most players is year 1 to year 2. And you can look at like the stats from Jack Del Rio, from players that played under Jack Del Rio, especially like Khalil Mack, and Von Miller. Those second years were absolutely insane. I'll probably, let me look that up, but those guys just had huge years in the second year. And I think, having Matt Ioannidis back is also going to help. And I just think he's going to have a huge year. I'm not sure yet on the sack total, but I definitely think if he's healthy, if he plays 14, 15 games plus, and there isn't like a lingering injury, I think he will be the sack leader and be, if not in the top 5 in defensive player of the year voting, he'll be close there. I think he'll have a huge, huge year. I think he's going to have a big jump. And yeah, I think he's going to have a huge year. And Sweat, I think he'll also have a huge year. But like, if Chase is playing that well, like the sacks there's not going to be as many sacks for him to get. So that's why I'm saying like 9.5, 10 sacks. But I still think he's going to have a huge year. And I think he's going to definitely be a little bit better than he was last year.
Yeah, I'm right with you on Sweat. I think I actually wrote this down in my notes. 9.5, 10 sacks. I think he's going to get about that range. We'll have a slightly better year than last year. Although, and also going into last season, I said that Sweat was going to have more sacks than Chase Young. Going to this season, I think that Young is going to have more sacks than Sweat, just because Young now has a year under his belt, a year of that Jack Del Rio magic, that Robert Rivera magic. And I just don't think he's going to get to 13, 14, or even 12 sacks. I think he's probably going to have 10.5 or 11. And that's going to be an improvement off of last year. I think he's going to have a much better season. That might not show with 6, 7 plus sacks on top of what he had last year. But I think he's going to have a better overall season, going to be better as a run stopper. Go ahead.
One quick thing. I looked up Khalil Mack. So under Jack Del Rio 4-3 system, want to guess what his rookie year sack was?
7.5, 8.
4. He had 4 in his first year.
Oh yeah, right.
Second year.
10 plus.
15. And that was under Del Rio, and I think Von Miller. Del Rio was his defensive coordinator. I think it was something similar, and same thing with Peppers. So I'm not totally sure that he's going to get 14 plus, but I definitely think he's going to have a huge, huge jump this year.
Okay, that's fair. I'm just gonna stick with 11, like 10.5, 11, maybe 11 sacks right now.
Yeah.
Just because I think.
Sorry, I just looked at another one. Miller was 11.5 to 19.
You also have to factor in though that like Chase Young is playing alongside a stacked defensive line. None of those guys had a guy at Sweat's caliber, right, on the other end to bookend, the defensive line. And then you have Jonathan Allen. You mentioned Matt Ioannidis, who I think is the best, and I will stand by this, the best interior defensive lineman on this team, coming back from injury. And just 2 seasons ago, he had 8 sacks. So I think he'll rack up the sacks again this year. And I just think it will be a little bit more dispersed across the defense. You even have a guy like Jamin Davis, who I think can rack up a couple sacks as well. Iron Man nickname. I mean, he's got a solid there. But so again, Young 11, Sweat 9.5, 10. Next question: who do you think will lead the team in tackles this year?
Tackles. So again, someone asked in the comments, and I'll answer the question. He asked what the jump was, and I think this might even be included in my video. Like, this might be like the biggest. Like, DN might be like the biggest year 1 to year 2 jump, because I looked up JJ Watts, 5.5 in his rookie year, 21 in his second year. So like, I'm seeing a big pattern. I think Myles Garrett. I'm not gonna look it up again because I keep doing it. But I'm pretty sure it's the same exact thing. But tackles, it's tough. I think last year, who was it last year?
Bostic, if I'm not mistaken. Was it Bostic?
It might have been
I think it was
Bostic, but I think I'm gonna go Jamin Davis. I don't know.
There you go.
I don't know yet, but he's gonna be the starter. So and I think at some point he'll be Bostic will start to phase out. And one of my sleepers that I've been on for a while is Khaleke Hudson. And I think I don't really know where he would play, but if you could have Cole Holcomb, Jamin Davis, and Khaleke Hudson by the end of the season, that would be really, really nice. Because obviously Bostic's gonna start for us probably week 1, week 2, those first few weeks. But end of the season, have Khaleke Hudson in there. That would be great. So yeah, probably Jamin Davis Could throw in Cole Holcomb there too if he stays healthy.
No, I agree with you. Khalil Hudson, Cole Holcomb, Jamin Davis, great. As you know, as a lot of people on this channel know, I'm not super high on John Bostic. So I think you saying that he will phase out of this defense maybe by age or just maybe by strictly performance. I am definitely up for that. Ninja Scroll, thank you for joining. We're just talking about the defense right now, pretty much answering some stats questions. I think in terms of the player that will lead the team in tackles, to keep it short, because we don't have too much time, Jamin Davis, I agree with you. I think he's going to have over maybe close to 100 tackles this year and will definitely be in the running for NFL Defensive Rookie of the Year, especially playing behind this defensive line. But also, like I said on the last week's stream, something that's not talked about enough, also playing in front of this very elite secondary that I think we're going to actually trot out this year in Washington. So I think he's going to have a great season. Now, you know what? I'm going to ask you this question instead. So who do you think will get more defensive snaps this season, Landon Collins or Cameron Curl?
Cameron Curl. I think first, I think this is a very easy question for me because Landon Collins, like he can say he's going to be ready for week 1, but like that's just speculation because like you have a Achilles tear or rupture end of October and like you think you're going to be fully healthy week 1 of the season. Like I'm not saying he won't. I'm not going to doubt a guy, but I think, you know, there's a chance he's not ready for the beginning of the season. And if he is, like, I'm going to be very disappointed if Cameron Curl is not the starting strong safety. If they have Landon Collins over him, because first, I think Cameron Curl is much better. And second, Landon Collins, more likely than not, is going to be done after this year in Washington because they can, you know, save a bunch of caps. So you're going to be, you know, kind of, I don't know, not sacrificing, but you're going to be possibly hindering Cameron Curl's development by playing Landon Collins just for 1 year of play. I don't like that. So I'm going to say Cameron Curl. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I agree. Cameron Curl, he's going to play all over the defense. I know our mutual friend Kyle, the pod father from the Burgundy Zone, actually got to interview Cam Curl. So go make sure to check out the interview on their channel, the Burgundy Zone on YouTube. But talked about how Cam Curl will play a lot more of, I think it was the Buffalo position, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, big nickel. I think he's going to play all over this defense and just by default will get more snaps that way. The last question I want to ask you regarding this defense is who will lead the team in interceptions this year?
Yeah, I knew you were going to ask that, so I was trying to think. It's tough because I don't think it'll be St. Juice just because didn't do it in college, didn't get a single pick in college, and, you know, who knows how much playing time he's going to get. And then you go Jackson, it's somewhat similar. Like, he definitely has gotten picks, but not a ball hawk, but could be different in this defense. So I'm going to stick with Kendall Fuller. You know, I don't think he had an amazing year last year, but he still was able to get. Yeah,
he was amazing until I think the game where he got his last pick. Yeah, or like maybe like a couple games after that. But
yeah, I agree. He was good for the first half of the season, and then after that, he really started. You know, he still had a couple of good games, but he had a lot of like really poor games. So, I think it'll really help him if he goes in the slot, in nickel. And I think he'll lead the league, not lead the league, but lead the team in interceptions, maybe like 3-4. I think there's going to be a lot of, you know, players getting 2-3 interceptions. And I don't know why in my mind I was like just thinking about cornerbacks when I said this. I don't know why. So, but I think Cameron Curl, though, honestly, I'm going to have to change my answer to Curl. If he's the starting strong safety, I think it'll be him, and even like Bobby McCain too. Like he had 2 picks today. He hasn't been known for as a ball hawk, but never played behind a D line like this. So I'll say Fuller, and if Cameron Curl's starting the year at strong safety, I think it'll be him.
Yeah, and I think with Bobby McCain, he might be our starting inside cornerback this year, or even free safety.
Yeah.
either way, he's going to get a lot of reps this year, in my opinion, and I think you agree with that as well. I think, though, I'm going to go with Kendall Fuller. I think I'm going with Kendall Fuller, well, one, based off what we saw last year, but also two, you got to think about it this way. William Jackson III, I think he's going to have an absolutely phenomenal season this year, playing behind this defensive line, reminiscent, even potentially better than his 2017 season, where I think he had the third lowest passer rating in terms of quarterbacks throwing against him. But I think he's going to have an absolutely phenomenal year. So when you factor that in, quarterbacks not wanting to throw his way,
Yeah.
I think they're going to throw a lot more towards Kendall Fuller. And Kendall Fuller might get beat a couple more times this year. But I ultimately think that he will be able to, by default, once again, will be able to get his hands on a lot more balls this year and rack up, maybe 3-4 interceptions, kind of like what you said at the earlier the beginning of your comments.
Yeah. One question I have for you. What position are you still like kind of concerned with? Could be a starting position, or it could be some depth.
And on the defense or on the team overall?
Wherever.
The one position that I'm concerned with right now, there are actually very few, which is amazing that we've gotten this far. But I would say let's take quarterback out of the picture, because you're always concerned about your quarterback if you don't have like a top 5 quarterback on the roster.
Yeah.
I would say tight end still. Sure, we have Logan Thomas, but we're an injury away from starting I don't know, Bates, 4th round pick, or Samus Coates, or not Coates, Samus Reyes, or I mean, I don't know, Ricky Seals-Jones, like you mentioned earlier. So I would say tight end would probably be my number one position.
Yeah, I think depth at the tight end position is definitely one. And I would say another one would be depth at the defensive end position. I don't think obviously I'm not concerned with Chase or Sweat, but if one of them's going down, I don't want to be starting Shakatoni or William Bradley or James Smith Williams. Hey, those guys could be good. We have no idea. I think they still
they're all 7th round picks.
Yeah, they're all 7th round picks, and I think they really should. Unless I think what they're doing is letting these guys, seeing what these guys are doing, maybe giving them 1 or 2 weeks in training camp. But I think they need to sign a veteran DN. There's still a lot of guys. I don't know if Melvin Ingram got signed, but he's possibly out there. Adrian Claiborne, there's a lot. Olivier Vernon, but I mean, he's not gonna probably sign here as a backup. But we need at least a veteran that can be solid, because who knows if Montez or Chase get hurt, or if they need a couple plays off, you still want to get okay pressure. So I think that's probably the position I would go with besides DN or besides tight end.
Yeah. Detroit Lions talk with Micro Mike. Thank you for joining. Watch football team defense is scary. Appreciate that comment. I will say, though, that last year when we played against the Lions, when we played against DeAndre Swift specifically, he was tearing us up. So I think you guys have a very good running back on your hands, DeAndre Swift, and I'm excited to see what he brings this year, both in real life and also in fantasy as well. So with that being said, I don't want to hold you for too much longer, Pedro, because I know you're super busy making great videos and also life in general. So last question I want to ask. As always, I literally ask every single person that joins the live stream this question at the very end. And the question is, what are your thoughts, after minicamp has wrapped up, after OTAs have wrapped up, what are your thoughts on the future of this Roster Football franchise? And do you think Coach Rivera is building a winner to the point where this team might win a Super Bowl in the next 2 to 3 years?
I am probably this is the highest I've been on the team in so long, probably ever since 2012. I the roster's great and everything, really not any major holes besides obviously quarterback, but I'll get into that later in my response. But I think that you look at what he's building here, the players he's bringing in, all these guys are really good character guys in my opinion. And he's bringing in the coaches. I really, really like the coaches that he's bringing in. I like pretty much everything. The people he's hiring, the front office structure, the experience there, which I love because I don't think they're gonna be like they're gonna rush things. I don't think they're gonna
Yeah.
do anything super stupid because they got 3 former GMs in there, so they all can check each other. And then quarterback, like I think this team truly is a quarterback away from being a contender. And there's already 3 disgruntled quarterbacks on the market in Watson, Wilson, and Rodgers. That's 3 right now. I guarantee you there'll be 1 or 2 more next season heading into the off season. And then also there's always free agency and the draft as well. So I think this next season, I need Washington to either trade for one of these guys or draft a quarterback, trade up because they can trade up this year, like trade up 5, 10 spots because they have all the pieces, in my opinion. Yes, they could use another offensive lineman. They could use another great receiver. Every team could, but I think that they're at the point where they don't have many holes that they can, sacrifice, years of first round picks to get their quarterback of the future. And hey, if you want him to sit for a year, go ahead, bring back Fitzpatrick, bring back Allen or whatever, and you can still win in 2022 while developing your guy, or you can go ahead and play him in 2022, but also there's a chance of getting one of those veteran guys. So I'm loving the future. Just got to hit the quarterback position, or else we're going to be, perennial like 9, 8, 8 to 10 wins every season. And that's fun for a bit, and it's much better than what we were the last 3 years. But
Oh yeah.
we want to at least win some playoff games, and later on a Super Bowl.
Yeah, I agree. When it comes down to it, Roger Smith, no doubt, building a juggernaut. I agree. I also agree with what you said at the very end of your comments. We cannot be stuck, and I know Street Scores, Rico from Street Scores, always talks about this, but we cannot be a team that's stuck winning 8, 9 wins, right? Because that's you do not want to be in that position because you're not bad enough to rack up the high draft picks, right? To really build on talent that you already have on the roster. And you're also not good enough to really contend for anything. So I definitely agree. I want to see more playoff bids, and I want to see us making some runs in the playoffs. I think as soon as 2022, with another offseason, with another draft, quarterback is obviously the position, right? If we don't get the quarterback position solved by the start of the 2022 season, then we're not talking about Super Bowl. But quarterback, draft, free agency, another year of Ron Rivera, another year of Jack Del Rio. Well, I mean, if Jack Del Rio has another great year with this defense, though, he might be, head coaching searches. I don't know.
Yeah.
We'll see. But another year of Ron Rivera, Chase Young would be his 3rd year by then. I'm just saying, if we get the quarterback situation handled by the start of the 2022 season, I think 2022. I know people are talking about how our Super Bowl window is already open. I know Dominique Foxworth, I believe, said that on ESPN last year. I don't agree with that. I think once we get a quarterback situation settled, then I definitely agree. So I think by the start of the 2022 season to maybe 2023, somewhere in there, I think we're going to start being legit Super Bowl contenders and going to be talked about like the Bills of the world, like the Ravens of the world, the Browns of the world, who I think is an underrated Super Bowl contender this year. The Bucks, obviously, Chiefs. So I think we're going to be in that in that boat.
And I think real quickly, I think we also, something that's super underrated is that we have a really good cap situation. I think we're like 5th or 6th right now in cap space for next year, and that's with Landon Collins on the book. And I also think
You have to sign some guys, though. Re-sign some guys.
Yeah, we have to re-sign some guys. Allen, Logan Thomas, I think we'll let go of McKissick, but I think that getting rid of Collins will save us like 13 plus million next year, which you can use on Logan and some of it on Allen. And I think one thing on the defensive coordinator, I think Jack Del Rio, I don't think he's going to get another head coaching job. He might, but Hail to the FT kind of said like he's probably a little too old to get a head coaching job. I'm not sure how old he is, but He might I'm gonna look that up. But also, I think an underrated guy on our defense that might get a head coaching job is Chris Harris. Okay, no, Jack Del Rio is okay. I thought he was older than he was. He's 58. But Chris Harris, I think he might get a head coaching job. Like if this year, if our defense, like let's say Fitzpatrick plays pretty well, we win. Let's say we win 11. Like I'm not predicting that we do, but let's say we win 11 games. Number one defense in the NFL. Defense is looking super good. We win a playoff game. I think Chris Harris, he got like 2, maybe 3 defensive coordinator interviews this offseason. So I think that might be a little bit too big of a step from going from cornerback coach to head coach, but he definitely, I think, will be gone after the season as a DC. But also, like, who knows? Some team might be willing to make him a head coach because isn't the Texans David Coley? He was a wide receivers coach for like 15 years, and that was it. He was not a coordinator at all. So we'll see. But yeah, super excited about this team's future.
Yeah, really quickly. I know time is running out. Terry McLaurin stat prediction. Like really quickly.
That's tough. I don't know. It's tough. I think. What did he have last year? He had 1,100 something, right?
Yeah, and 4 touchdowns, if I'm not mistaken.
I'm gonna say he gets 8 touchdowns. I'm gonna say 1,290 yards.
Okay. I got 13. I don't know what I said last week, but I'll say now 13-20 receiving yards and 6 or 7 receiving touchdowns. That's what I think.
So we're pretty much the
same. Yeah. So with that being said, Pedro, my God, thank you so much for joining the stream.
No problem.
As always, bringing that great insight onto this channel that you bring constantly on your channel as well. Again, if you guys haven't already subscribed to this channel, make sure to click on the link in the description. It'll take you right to his page, right to the great content creator that is Pedro Schmith. And with that being said, thank you guys so much for no problem. Thank you guys so much for joining. Uria, Roger Smith, Hail to the FT, Gregory Lightbody, Ninja Scroll. I think it was first time on this channel actually. Ninja Scroll, James Panda, everybody, Protech earlier, Gunner, everybody for joining. I appreciate AM Hunter as well. And yeah, so thank you guys so much for watching. Have a great night and see you on the next one.
Peace. See you guys.